I never thought I'd be the guy writing a story like this, but here I am, stuck reliving everything over and over. It all started about 6 months ago. My wife Jessica and I had been together for almost 10 years. We weren't perfect, but we had a decent life, good jobs, a nice house, and 2 kids we loved more than anything. She used to be sweet, kind even, but somewhere along the line she changed. She started spending more time with her friends, going out a lot more, and I noticed she was more irritable, snapping at me over small things. Still, I told myself she was just stressed or maybe I wasn't paying enough attention. Then came the little signs. Her phone would buzz at weird hours and she'd quickly hide it, acting guilty if I got too close. At first, I thought maybe she was just chatting with her sister or a friend. But then I started noticing her messages. I'd catch her glancing at her phone in a way that seemed suspicious, like she was trying to hide something. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One night, I was sitting in our living room flipping through the TV channels when I saw her phone on the coffee table. I knew I shouldn't peek, but I couldn't help myself. I picked it up and saw a string of texts from this guy named Mark. At first, I thought maybe it was just friendly banter, but then I saw what she was saying. It wasn't innocent. She was flirting hard, talking about how much she loved hearing his voice, how she couldn't wait to see him again. The language was so explicit, talking about sex, about how they were planning to meet up. My stomach dropped. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew. I knew she was cheating. I felt this strange mix of betrayal, anger, and heartbreak swirling inside me. I stared at the screen, just stunned, trying to process what I'd just read. I saw how she messaged him, asking him to meet her that weekend. She even mentioned she was tired of pretending everything was okay with me, that she needed this escape. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. For all those years I thought I knew her. Turns out I only knew the version she wanted me to see. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head. I didn't want to confront her right away. I knew I needed to think to figure out what to do. But the truth was I felt shattered. How did I not see this coming? How could she lie so easily? Jessica always had a sharp tongue, a bitchy attitude when she didn't get her way, but I never imagined she'd do something this cruel. She'd lie about small stuff, about where she was, who she was texting, always twisting things so it looked like I was overreacting. But this was different. I also started questioning everything about us. Were we even really married? Did she see me as a partner or just someone to keep her life manageable? I thought about all the nights she went out without telling me, the secretive phone calls, the way she'd brush me off when I asked about her plans. It all clicked into place. She was cheating, and she had been for months. I just didn't want to admit it until I saw it with my own eyes. Now, I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. The worst part, I still loved her. No matter how much I was hurt, I kept asking myself if there was any way to fix this, to save what we had. But deep down, I knew it was over. I could feel it. The trust was gone. The foundation was cracked beyond repair. I didn't want to just leave her and go through the pain, but I also couldn't stay and pretend everything was normal. I was stuck in this terrible limbo, trying to figure out what to do next. The next day, I couldn't focus on anything else. My mind kept circling back to that night, to what I saw on her phone. I kept questioning myself. Did I miss the signs? Was I blind all these years? How long had this been going on? The anger started to bubble up, and honestly, I felt sick. The kind of sick that makes your stomach churn and your head spin. I couldn't believe I had been so naive, so trusting, only to be played like a fool. Jessica was at work, or so she said. I didn't believe her. I decided I needed to see her face to face, to hear her lie again. I wanted her to see how much she'd hurt me, how betrayed I felt. I told her I needed to talk, and she gave me that typical attitude, dismissive, bitchy, like I was bothering her. But I wasn't going to back down. I met her at a cafe close to her job, my heart pounding as I waited. When she finally arrived, she was dressed in her usual sharp, sarcastic way. She sat across from me, rolling her eyes like I was some kind of inconvenience. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I knew everything. I laid it out, those messages, the plans, how I had seen her flirting with Mark for months. Her reaction: she scoffed, threw her head back, and said I was paranoid, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. The way she lied so effortlessly made my blood boil. Are you serious? I asked, my voice trembling but loud enough for her to hear. You've been cheating on me, Jessica, on your husband. How long has this been going on? How many times? She shrugged, trying to act like she didn't care. It's none of your business. I told you it's just sex. It doesn't mean anything. You're overreacting. You always do. That's when I lost it. My anger spilled over. I told her how much she'd hurt me, how I had trusted her, and she'd just thrown that trust in the trash. I told her I wasn't going to sit around and be some fool anymore. That I deserved better than a wife who lied to my face, who slept around with some barista who knew my coffee order by heart. Because I knew exactly who he was. Mark. That was the guy she was sneaking around with. I had seen the messages, seen her tell him she loved him, that she wanted to be with him. Her face twisted into this bitchy sneer. You're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're so upset for. It's just sex. It's not like I'm leaving you or anything. I'm just having some fun. You should try it sometime instead of acting like some jealous lunatic. The words hit me harder than I expected. I felt like I'd been punched. She was so dismissive, so callous, like she was entitled to do whatever she wanted. I looked at her, the woman I'd loved for so many years, and I realized she didn't care about me. Not really. She had built this entire lie, this facade, and I was just the sucker who believed it. I told her that I wanted her out of the house, that I couldn't stay with someone who didn't respect me, who had lied and cheated for who knows how long. She rolled her eyes again, said I was overreacting, that I was making a scene, but I didn't care anymore. I was done trying to be reasonable. I told her I'd be packing her bags and she could find herself a new place to stay. She didn't argue much, just snapped at me for making her feel guilty for having a sex life. Like it was her right to do whatever she wanted, and I was the one who'd ruined everything. That confrontation left me feeling hollow. I'd always known she had a bitchy streak, but this was something else entirely. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. And with every word she spat, I felt my love for her dying a little more. The betrayal was so deep I wondered if I'd ever fully recover from it. I went home that afternoon, heart heavy, mind racing. I looked around the house at the life we'd built, and suddenly it all seemed meaningless. I knew I had to make a decision, whether to fight for her, to try and fix this, or to cut my losses. But deep down, I already knew the answer. This was no longer about fixing things. It was about surviving the fallout, about figuring out how to pick up the pieces of a life I'd thought was perfect, only to find it was just an illusion. That night, I sat alone in the dark, staring at my phone, replaying everything I'd uncovered. The betrayal cut so deep, I felt like I'd been physically punched in the chest. I kept thinking about Jessica's words, her dismissiveness, how she lied so easily. I had loved her, sure, but now I started feeling this gnawing sense of rage. How could she just brush it off, act like it was no big deal? I wondered if she even cared about what she'd done to us, or if she saw me as just some inconvenience she was willing to toss aside. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't exactly sure what. Do I confront her again? Do I threaten to leave? Or do I just sit back and let her play her games? I couldn't believe I'd let her manipulate me for so long. She always played the victim, acted like she was the one being wronged when I questioned her. But now I saw her for what she really was, a bitchy, selfish woman with no regard for the vows we took. She thought she could cheat and lie her way out of it, and I'd just accept it. The next morning, I decided I'd had enough. I wanted to see if I could catch her again, to find more proof. I installed a little hidden app on her phone, something to monitor her messages and calls. I know, probably not the most ethical move, but I was desperate. I needed to know if she was still sneaking around, if she was planning to meet Mark again. As much as I hated spying, I also hated feeling powerless. I wanted to catch her in the act, see how far she'd go. For the next few days, I watched her carefully. She kept up her usual bitchy attitude, but I noticed she was more secretive about her phone now. She'd take it to the bathroom, lock herself in there for a long time, or leave it face down on the table. I saw her texting and deleting messages rapidly. One day, I even saw her tell someone, probably Mark, that she was ready for the next step, whatever that meant. It confirmed what I already suspected. She was still seeing him, still lying to my face. Meanwhile, I was trying to keep it together. I was furious, hurt, and confused all at once. How did I get here? How did the woman I married turn into this cold, manipulative person? I started questioning every moment of our relationship, every laugh, every fight, every "I love you" she ever said. Was it all a lie, or was she just better at hiding her true self? The whole thing felt surreal, like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. My mind kept circling back to her excuses. Every time I confronted her, she'd spin some bullshit about how she was just trying to find herself, how I didn't understand her, how she needed more from life. She'd call me paranoid or jealous, but I knew the truth. She was cheating, lying, probably screwing that barista. What was his name? Jake? No, Mark. I knew it was him now because I'd found the thread that tied it all together. The guy knew my coffee order by heart. That's how close they were getting. I was so angry I started planning my next move. I wanted to catch her red-handed, to make her see that I wasn't some fool she could manipulate anymore. I decided I'd set a trap. I'd leave my phone in plain sight, with a message or two that I knew would get her attention. Maybe make it seem like I was talking to someone else, to see if she'd get jealous or try to intervene. I wanted to see her true colors. I needed to know if I was wasting my time fighting for a marriage that was already dead. I also realized I needed to prepare myself emotionally. Hell, I was already emotionally drained, but I had to brace for whatever came next. Would she deny everything? Would she get angry? Or would she finally admit she'd been sleeping with Mark? I didn't know, but I was tired of feeling helpless. I wanted to confront her again, to get some answers, and honestly to see if I could still feel anything for her after all this. Because right now I just felt numb and betrayed. I never thought I'd end up in this position, questioning my own marriage, wondering if I'd wasted years on someone who didn't care. The worst part is, I still loved her, even now. Despite everything, a part of me wanted to believe we could somehow fix this. But that hope was fading fast. Every new message I saw, every new lie I uncovered pushed me further away from that fantasy. I'm just trying to figure out how to get through this, how to pick myself up after everything I've lost. Because right now, I feel like I've lost everything. My wife, my trust, my sense of security. And I don't even know who I am anymore. After a few days of watching her closely, I started noticing more patterns. Jessica became even more defensive, more bitchy when I questioned her about her whereabouts. She'd brush me off, call me paranoid, or accuse me of spying because I didn't trust her. Honestly, I didn't care anymore about her accusations. I knew the truth, and every time she lied, it just reinforced what I was starting to accept, that she had checked out of this marriage long before I even found out. One afternoon, I decided to push her further. I left my phone on the kitchen table with a message I knew she'd see. It was nothing special, a simple "Hey, I was thinking about you. Can't wait to see you tonight." I left it open, knowing she'd get curious. When she walked into the kitchen and saw it, her eyes flicked to it quickly. Then she looked me straight in the face and said, "What are you doing, trying to make me jealous?" Her tone was snide, dismissive, like she was just annoyed that I was bothering her. I knew she'd seen the message, but she played it off like she didn't care. That was the moment I decided I'd had enough. I was done pretending I didn't know what was happening. I told her I was done with her lies, that I knew about Mark, about how she'd been lying to me for months. I told her I had proof, screenshots, logs, everything, and I was not going to keep pretending like everything was okay. Her reaction: she scoffed, rolled her eyes, and said, "You're crazy. You're just jealous because I don't want to be married to a man who's insecure and stupid." Her words cut deep, but I was past caring about her insults. I just wanted her out, wanted to get real answers. She looked furious, but I could see that she was also scared. She knew I was serious now, so I told her she needed to pack her bags and leave that night. I didn't want her in my house anymore, not after everything I'd uncovered. She started throwing a tantrum, screaming and calling me names, trying to make me feel guilty. "You're just jealous," she yelled. "You're insecure. You think I'm just going to sit around and be your little housewife forever. Sorry, but I've got needs and you don't understand me." I couldn't believe the audacity, that she was spinning this whole thing around, making herself the victim. She was the one cheating, lying, sneaking around, and yet she was playing the innocent victim now. I sat there, silent, watching her shove clothes into a bag, her bitchy attitude on full display. I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Relief that I finally knew the truth and that I was taking control of the situation. Sadness that it had come to this, that the woman I loved had turned into someone so cold and manipulative. When she finally left, I felt a strange emptiness. The house was so quiet without her. I kept thinking about all the moments we'd shared, the good and the bad, and wondered how it all fell apart so quickly. I kept telling myself I did the right thing, that I couldn't stay with someone who didn't respect me, who cheated and lied so easily. But even that rational part of me was tinged with pain, because deep down I still loved her. Or maybe I just loved what we had and I'd lost that forever. That night I sat alone, staring at the empty space where she'd been. My mind kept racing. I wondered if she was already with Mark, if they were laughing about how I finally found out. I wondered if I was making the right decision. But then I remembered her words, her lies, her bitchy attitude, and I knew I couldn't stay. I had to rebuild myself from this mess, even if it meant starting over completely. I realized that, in the end, I'd been a fool to believe she was the woman I thought I married. Now, I just felt like a broken shell, trying to find the strength to move on. The days that followed were a blur. I threw myself into work trying to keep busy, but every time I was alone, the pain hit harder. I kept replaying everything: the betrayal, her lies, the way she dismissed me like I was some insignificant obstacle. It was like waking up from a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I kept asking myself how I'd missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind to the bitchy, manipulative woman she'd become. I thought I knew her, but turns out I barely knew her at all. I started feeling numb most of the time. Part of me wanted to confront her again, to demand she tell the truth about everything. But honestly, I knew she'd lie. Her way out of it, just like she always did. She'd spin some sob story about how she was trying to find herself, how I was just insecure or jealous. I didn't want to hear it anymore. I'd already seen through her act. The woman I married was gone. The Jessica I knew was just a facade she'd put on for years. One afternoon, I finally decided I'd had enough of the silence, of pretending I was okay. I needed closure, something to give me peace, whether it was good or bad. I reached out to a lawyer to understand my options. I wasn't about to be some fool who got played and then stayed silent. I wanted to protect myself, my kids, my assets. I needed to know how to get her out of my life legally, if that was the route I was going to take. The lawyer explained the divorce process, what I'd need to do, and how to make sure I kept what was mine. It was a sobering reality check. This was really happening. Meanwhile, Jessica kept trying to contact me, of course. I ignored her at first, but then she escalated. One morning I got a message from her, long, bitchy, full of lies. She claimed she was sorry, that she'd made a mistake, but she also accused me of not understanding her needs and said she'd found herself in Mark's arms. That was the phrase that really broke me. She was proud of what she'd done, almost like she wanted me to feel guilty for catching her. She still refused to admit she was wrong, still insisted she was the victim. That moment, I realized I'd been wasting my time arguing with her. She'd lie even if the truth knocked her over. So I decided to take control for myself. I told her that I was done, that I was filing for divorce, and that I wanted nothing more to do with her. I told her she could keep Mark, keep whatever else she thought she wanted, because I was done being the fool. That I'd protect my kids, but I was no longer going to tolerate her bitchy attitude or her lies. It was hard to say the words, but I knew it was necessary. If I didn't do this now, I'd just be living in a nightmare forever. That night I sat down and drafted the paperwork. I was prepared for the fight, for all the accusations and tears, but I also felt strangely relieved. Like a big weight was finally lifting off my chest. I'd been betrayed so badly, but I was finally taking steps to move on. I had to accept that Jessica was no longer part of my life, and that I deserved someone who respected me, who loved me, not someone who constantly lied, cheated, and treated me like I was nothing. Looking back now, I realize I learned a lot from this mess. Trust is fragile, and I'd been blind to the signs for too long. I also learned that some people are just selfish and manipulative, and that it's better to cut ties early rather than hold onto something that's already dead. If I could give anyone advice, if you suspect your partner's cheating, don't ignore it. Don't let yourself be the fool waiting for things to get better, because sometimes the only way to save yourself is to walk away. And honestly, that's what I plan to do. I'm going to rebuild myself, find my happiness again, and leave the bitchiness and lies behind. Because I deserve better, we all do. The divorce went through faster than I expected, mostly because Jessica didn't put up much of a fight. She was too busy playing the victim, spinning her lies about how I was abusive and jealous, but nobody bought it. The truth was, I was finally free. Free from her bitchy attitude, her constant lies, her sneaky affairs. It was like finally ripping off a bandage that had been painfully clinging for years. Honestly, I felt a strange mixture of relief, anger, and sadness. Relief because I was no longer trapped, anger because she had betrayed me so badly, and sadness because I still loved what we once had, or at least thought I did. In the months that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I started seeing a therapist, talking about everything that happened, trying to process the betrayal. I threw myself into work, into my kids, into my own healing. It wasn't easy. Some nights I'd lie awake and wonder how I ever trusted her, how I didn't see the signs sooner. But time does heal, even if it's slow and messy. I realized I wasn't alone in this. Many guys get blindsided by the woman they loved, and I wasn't going to let her ruining me define my future. Looking back, I learned some hard lessons. Trust is everything, and once it's broken, rebuilding it is almost impossible. I also learned that women like Jessica, the manipulative, bitchy types, will do whatever they can to keep control, lying, cheating, gaslighting. And the worst part, they'll make you feel like you're overreacting, like you're the crazy one. Don't fall for that. Listen to your gut. When you see the signs, don't ignore them. It's better to face the truth early than to waste years on someone who doesn't value you. Now I'm finally at peace. I've moved out of our house, started fresh, and I'm slowly rebuilding a life where I'm respected and valued. I don't regret what happened because it forced me to wake up and take control. I don't hate Jessica. I just understand now that she was never the person I thought she was. I wish her the best, honestly, but I know I'll never trust her again. That's okay. To anyone out there dealing with a similar betrayal, stay strong. Don't let someone treat you like garbage. Trust yourself, listen to your instincts, and don't be afraid to walk away. Sometimes the best revenge is simply moving on and proving that you're better off without them. Because in the end, you deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect. And if you're not getting that, then it's time to say goodbye and start over.